Welcome to Down at the Crossroads Radio, here again on another Thursday night. David's looking at me, drinking his soda. Sean's eating chicken. Michelle's playing with her phone, not looking in the chat room. Gene's here doing Sean's job. It's all good.
Wow.
Yep. We're having fun. It's been a great Thursday evening. A lot of surprises.
A lot of surprises.
Surprise.
Surprise.
So, I haven't really talked with you guys much this week. Have you heard, you guys got any feedback on the book yet or anything? Michelle?
No.
No? Okay. No, yes?
Yeah, we're getting started.
You're going to have to talk into the mic. The listeners can't hear you from over there. You know that. We're going to have to just get wireless mics for everybody eventually. Make no hurry over here or anything. What? I was trying to ask you a question. Let me know you're not coming over here.
We're actually getting a lot of really good feedback. Anybody who has read the book, is planning on reading the book, you can go to our website, chroniclesofaSupernaturalist.com. You can leave a review, you can leave comments, you can send us email, whatever. Let us know what you think of the book. You can actually buy it from the website also.
There we go. That's times right there. You know, it's been a ridiculous week, I think. Came back from Thanksgiving and doing all my stuff and find out Monday Leslie Nielsen's dead.
Poor old Leslie.
Wow.
Man,
Who knew he was that old, though?
he's 84. I had no idea he was 84. My cousin kind of brought it up that he was just one of them people that's looked exactly the same since we've been alive. So we just, I guess, thought he was immortal.
Well, but let's be real here. I mean, it's not like he did a lot of hard work.
It's true.
You know.
He was a late bloomer in acting now.
Very true.
Yeah, he
very
was.
True.
He was already completely, I think, white by airplane, wasn't he?
Yeah. And that was in, 1980 when that first came out? So.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So I mean, it's been a rough week. We've had the fallout from Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and has there been really anybody that's hit the goals they thought they were going to? So I haven't heard good things about this past Black Friday. Hump, do you know anything about that?
Absolutely. The news media blew it up to be the greatest in 2 years. This started Friday evening, and like I told everybody at work, I was curious to see what Monday morning or even Sunday evening was, after all the numbers from the major retailers had come in. And Monday morning they reported it's not.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
What is that? Wow. Sounded like a frog in the background. The numbers are not there this year. A lot of retailers are down. Not a lot of people are spending money. They're kind of holding on to it, buying just, the people that went out to buy those good deals, that's what they did, and that was it, But who's going to fight and be up there all morning to fight for a TV that's going to be on sale next month anyway,
For even less.
For even less.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people, I don't think, use their heads on it, but as far as the economics, it's just not there, and I can't wait to see what the next 3 weeks is going to hold for retailers.
There is no way I would get out, fight that crowd, people pushing, screaming, acting a fool just for a few dollars. There's no way.
Y'all, when I left last Thursday night, I got to the intersection of where Toys R Us was at 10:10.
Exactly.
The line went out Toys R Us.
They were parking at
all the way. There was a line for all the way to the Dollar General across the parking lot. That's over 250 yards of people. Did you know they tried to get the police to come off Atlanta Highway, couldn't get in?
Yeah.
And I had to drive my truck over the median, all the way around the grass and the curve to get on Eastern Boulevard.
Hey, I was telling Pam the same thing. That it was just crazy. People were burning their tires and slinging around in front of them.
To put toys on layaway.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. That was for layaway.
I'm sure Hump did it very calmly and slowly and safely.
Absolutely. 4-wheel drive. That's why my front end's messed up.
Again?
Yeah.
Is your car really messed up again?
I got to
Your
replace
truck?
the front end now.
What?
$2,500.
Dude, you'd be better off just to buy a new truck.
I know.
You can't do it. Why can't you get rid of it, man?
I love that truck.
Well,
Is
I
that
love my
really
truck
it?
too, but dang, $2,500 every time you turn around gets a
Oof.
steep, chief. Especially with that new
That's
baby.
that's a down payment on a new truck.
Yeah. I got one more thing to say about retail, real quick, and I know this has absolutely nothing to do with paranormal, but I also want to say a few things first. Thanks everybody for checking out Down at Crossroads Facebook, pushing the bulletins, pushing the show, pushing the book. Thank you for everybody that comments on the book. Appreciate Mark for everything on our Facebook and our personal pages. But as far as retail goes, let's don't be naive about these LCD TVs. They're gonna be just like the DVD player. When the DVD player come out, they were about $150.
Yeah.
They give them away now for $15, y'all.
Yep.
The VCR is still more expensive than a DVD player, just like these LCD TVs. A few more months, you can buy a 42-inch TV, mark my words, for under $300 because, I mean, they're just very cheap. I don't care what brand you buy. They're going to be so plentiful, just like laptops now. You can start buying good Toshiba 3-4 gig laptops for about $450, $500.
Used to cost you $1,500.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's especially the TVs. I mean, I think this summer you could buy a reasonable 38 inch for for under 300. So it's or 36 inch at Best Buy. I saw when I was pricing my TV that I got at the beginning of the year, I think. So it's not too bad.
Well, something that struck me pretty hard this week, and I'm gonna get a hump started on this. Did you see where they're now talking about restricting the offshore drilling even more?
Yes. Yeah.
And China is buying up and locking down all these offshore drilling places around the world, man, everywhere.
They should.
And we're cutting it out.
Yeah.
It's going to cut even more jobs. It's going to make us even more dependent on other people. What is going on?
We elected them. Everybody that elected the Obama administration did it. And I hate to go this route because Sean's fixing to get fired up. But we as Americans did this to ourselves when they banned the East Coast offshore drilling. Now, I don't know what they're fixing to do in terms of the Gulf of Mexico. I think a lot of politics and money have their hands in the companies that own the drilling in the Gulf. But, I mean, it's a travesty. We're doomed as Americans. And if people, the middle class, need to wake up. The middle class are the meek and the rich are fixing to be the weak. And we're going to be all slaves to the system and to this economy and to this administration. And we've got to wake up. These leaky leaks and all this crap coming out that you see in the news and stuff is just the tip of the iceberg of more to come. And, you know, Sean, I've talked to him the past 2 weeks now of big things that have happened in November, and he hit it on the head.
Oh, yeah.
All right. The hurricane, I'm going to give it to him because there was a hurricane in the Atlantic that went straight up the Atlantic in November. We'll give it to him because it's close. North Korea, South Korea is a big problem. The Middle East is a problem. The CIA missing the #2 guy of Al-Qaeda, that's the equivalent to me missing a cheeseburger at McDonald's.
And that
it's just not going to happen.
It ain't happening.
You know, it's a travesty, but Americans need to wake up because we are going to be slaves to the system.
I mean, but what kind of mindset has this man got to do this?
It's not his mindset, it's the people that behind him. And the mindset, too, is think about all the thousands of people that was there on Black Friday lined up. How many of them folks are struggling to make a house payment?
Oh.
I mean, that's where we're not thinking about, as American people, what's best for our families. We're thinking about the big things, and it's starting to hurt us. And then they're allowing us to do that. They're letting the media and everything promote these big sales to drive you in and let you spend money you don't have. And you know that there's a bigger person or bigger group to play besides our presidency and everything else. It's those behind the scenes that set the tone and setting everything that's happening. And we're starting to see they're tightening up. At that last election, they said we're done playing, and that's exactly what's happening with our oil and everything else. You fixing to really see something coming.
It's the tip of the iceberg, people. And you know, I've been preaching it for months now. The gold, the gold's no joke because it's going up. They've done predicted now that come out on CNN Money Market, $6,000 an ounce.
Yep.
By the end of next summer. And when the American people, the middle class, run all out, you know, they got you by the balls no matter how you look at it. And the deflation of the American dollar by February is starting to really scare me because I see it on a financial side every day. The American dollar's dropping. There's no money to be printed. And we're fixing to see some sad times. So don't let the hype fool you. Don't let these ads fool you as Americans, because every retailer now for December and January is their fat month. It's where they're going to make it big because Americans are going to go out and spend all that Christmas money and that stuff, that money that they don't have. Because I've talked to many people the past week. There's going to be people in bills that don't get paid this month. You may not even pay your house mortgage just to roll it over to January because you're going to take care of your kids for Christmas, just like credit cards. You know, everything may roll, and that's just a trickling effect of getting yourself deeper and deeper in debt. And,
well, they're encouraging that. Just today, I got a telephone call from my credit card company wanting me to sign up for some program where I can skip my monthly payment. They'll pay my payment once a year, no questions asked. And if I make a payment, they'll apply that payment to 100% of the principal of the revolving debt. So they're encouraging you to skip your bills, you know.
Tri-Rivers Credit Union does that about this time, usually November, December. But it's crazy because they know, and it's like in my business. I wonder how I'm not going to get paid this month because people are not going to pay their bills because of all the hype for Christmas, and it's just killing Americans.
But what's fixing to happen? Here's you. I hate to call this a prediction, but this is what I think is going to happen. Is that a lot of people are spending what they don't have right now because they're banking on their taxes. And what's going to happen is that you're going to see the economy kind of grow a little bit, and it's going to get really strong for the next few months. But when the bottom falls out this time, it's going to literally be gone. And I'm telling you, when you go ahead and wait, you're going to see us make a little rise, and you're going to see our economy strengthen through the holidays. You're going to see it strengthen through January, February, March. But come about May, you're going to see something happen, and it's going to be done. The bottom's going to fall out, and it's going to be a whole new world for the American people. And you're going to see absolutely mass terror because there's no way to come up, and there's no more visionaries. There's no other things to happen. And you think about the Great Depression when that fell through. They didn't come out till World War II. And the only way we can come out of it is actually create a war. And there's no great minds and nobody really able to do it to pull us out. And they set us up for this big fall. And the fall's here. It's going to happen. So here it comes. So get ready.
The big fall, and the one thing that I like about Alabama this year and the IRS is they're making tax preparers this year register. I am pumped over it. They have to the end of this month to register their company because that's been a huge problem the past 3 years of getting your taxes done in December, getting partial checks by the 30th to roll over by the 18th or 17th of January. And at least somebody's got the balls enough this year to stop that. But that money that everybody's banking on now for, I'm going to get my tax check, that is a joke, man. That's a joke.
Let me tell you what's a joke is the media. You know what I heard in the same news segment this week is they actually, when I heard it, I blanked out with my anger. Then it came back again. Well, they actually came back again about paying for people that claim to be slaves or Native Americans, reimbursing them
billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars. And then the next segment was that they're fixing to raise the age of Social Security, cut all this stuff and how we're broke, and they're fixing to give that money away. And you tell me, if there's nothing in the world that divides the American people, there it is. And you don't think they're doing that on purpose? They're absolutely doing it on purpose. They're dividing the masses, and that's the mass they have to divide. And they put these ignorant people on the TV to promote it, to make hard-working Americans, no matter what their race is, to make them angry. And that's what they're doing, is dividing us on these subjects. And that, to me, is the most criminal act in American history, for them to raise Social Security, cut back all the us hard-working American people to give back to that. I think that's an extreme insult to anybody that's working, and that should be almost the final straw. And that's one of the most criminal acts in American history, I think, is when it goes through.
It's insane because nobody alive today was ever a slave.
Exactly.
Nobody.
Why are you supposed to get a handout? This kind of crap makes me sick, man. You know,
So
I knew I'd get the
if
boy
we're gonna,
started.
if we're
I
gonna,
knew I'd get him started.
Just
But
to
that was
say,
actually on the same news segment.
Yeah.
That was back to back.
Yeah, it's insane. It's almost like they're trying to create a civil war in this country
Yeah.
to thin us out.
And I think
Let
that will
let
do
them
it.
kill each other off.
That's how the economy would rise to do that. Without a war, it'd be our own personal war. But I tell you what, I got fired up by, and I've done talked to everybody from the head of the health department to the State Department of Alabama, the WIC, all these commercials and signs about WIC.
Mhm.
The commercial showing this family has a brand new house, a brand new car, and talking about WIC, women and children.
Mhm.
So I called and I said, well, I want to be on WIC too.
Yeah.
I want somebody to pay for the milk and formula and the diapers and stuff for me.
You do look good in
Sir,
a diaper.
Sir, do you make under $20,000? I said, absolutely not. I said, are you kidding me? And she goes into saying, well, that's only designed for people that make under $20,000 in a single household.
Mhm.
So if you're married, it's automatically cut out. So I went ballistic. I was so angry. I said, are you kidding me? These billboards and signs that you got all over promoting it, this huge happy family, the commercial that you're running with a brand new car in the yard, a home. I go, man, and they make under $20,000. She goes, ooh, I can't answer. I can't answer those questions. And I start going up the chain, and nobody can give you an answer about it. But that's just a huge ploy. You know, it's a joke. I was so flustered and infuriated with it because they sell handouts now. They want to media-size and publicize the handout for Americans.
Exactly.
And it pissed me off, and I'm ill now.
But the point to really think about as Americans and everybody that's talking about this, think about, we was talking about this a year ago. We was talking about this when President Obama was elected. But think about how we felt then and how we felt now, and look at the anger bar.
Oh,
I guarantee you our anger bar is raised tenfold, and I'm serious. And imagine that what's going to happen 2 years from now, by 2012 election. Our anger bar is going to be to the point that we're going to say, oh, hell, this is it. We're getting out of
it's going to be to the point where there's going to be torches and pitchforks around the White House.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guys, check this out. You know, speaking of 2012 and the elections, I saw this on CNN. Where the next, whoever's going to run is waiting. They're all waiting. They're like hungry wolves waiting. Because it all boils down to what's Sarah Palin going to do? What's she going to do? Does it really matter? Yeah, this is coming from all these camps out here.
Right.
They want to know what she's going to do, what she's going to do. I mean, does it really matter? Seriously? I mean, think about that. What's the other guy that wants to run that y'all talk about? With Ron
Paul?
You know, one of them running again. But everybody's kind of waiting, holding back. And then they did a poll about Obama being reelected, and it was like 36%. It was crazy low numbers. So he's done.
He's done.
But we're almost to the point where anybody will say, no matter who's in that office, somebody has put them there. It's obviously clear to any educated American that Obama was put in that office to do this.
To do this, yeah.
And it's as clear as anything could be, you know. And you know, I actually listened to our old Coast to Coast this week when they were talking about the Kennedy assassination and how pretty much everything started then. What's happening now began then. And the same thing that Jake talked about a few weeks ago, what Eisenhower said when he warned the Americans, that Eisenhower, when he came out, when his speech, or was it Truman, Jake? Eisenhower. And then they talked about Eisenhower's speech and how what the JFK assassination, everything else kind of been building up to where we're at now, and it's one big master plan, and the guy was talking about it, and I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And he was saying how this presidency is put up here as a pawn to keep doing it, and it's one big thing to divide us and break us down, and it's happening. It's happening right before our eyes. And you got to admit, no matter how secure your job is, you can see the long distance where your job can be affected. I mean, I can look at my job and see how it can be infected years from now. There's no job secure right now in the future. There's none. That light at the end of the tunnel is not there, and that's what's scary to me.
That's even in the healthcare field. You know, I hear this. You get a degree in the healthcare field. Really? We're not going to have no insurance. We're not going to have no money. You know, somewhere it's going to have to stop sooner or later. Something's going to have to give, just like healthcare reform. That's another huge joke. And And I just don't know what we're going to do as Americans, but we've all got to work together and stand up. And I know this is not paranormal, but it is in a way, because it affects each and every one of us in our lives and our families' lives, and even people that listen to this show. This affects them some way, whether it's paranormal or anything that we talk about. And it's something that people have to wake up and realize that we're in the months of you're supposed to give back and care and have that family. Right now, December to me, you know, you're supposed to have that family, that warm, caring feeling. But yet, retailers want you to spend, debt. And if you do that and go that route, you're going to be, there's no light at your tunnel.
But I understand the point that you got to spend to kickstart the economy. You know, you got to do it, but it's almost to the point that people are not buying smart. You know, they're going out just being ridiculous.
Well, and there's all spending money that they don't have.
Exactly.
And, you know, you can only dig the hole so deep before it caves in on you. You know, and everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it. And they justify it because they go, well, I've got, like Tom said, I've got to do it for my kid.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to miss this payment. They're going to miss that. Next thing you know, they ain't going to know where to live.
Exactly. But you know what? You see it even at a municipal level. You know, I've been angry before and ran for city council, done all this weird stuff. But let's talk about the city of Montgomery. You know, Alabama State University is building a football stadium, and they're putting it in that area. And that university, it's well needed. They needed that. But they've decided to destroy Crampton Bowl to put a brand new facility in it to play high school games there twice a weekend, and to hope and to gamble and to bet to bring in bigger things to pay for that. But they're not telling the citizens of Montgomery, because they do it in the fine line, that they're having to lose $100,000 off our city budget is what they get off Alabama State games, and the parking spaces they're losing the state workers. Now imagine that. If you're in the city of Montgomery, imagine right now they're taking $100,000 off that budget. To me, that is disastrous. And then the Montgomery citizens are letting them do it. They didn't have a choice. They slid it right in, and they're tearing it up because they're gambling on bringing things in. They're betting on things don't happen. And you can look right at what's happening with the city of Prattville right now. They're in trouble because they gambled with money they didn't have. And that's really a bad thing what's happened. They're not doing it. They're gambling with the citizens' money instead of with investors. And that's what's terrifying what's happening. And I say Montgomery was heading in the right direction, but that was a bad move.
Isn't a lot of this stuff coming in before all the people that we elected newly is taking office?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I don't agree with them redoing the Crampton Bowl at all. I mean, Sean, do you agree with it?
No.
Not for high school football.
No, I don't. To me, as a citizen of Montgomery and somebody that actually loves the city, it's terrifying to anybody that works for the city, your brother, anybody, to realize that in a few years there's going to be $100,000 off the budget. And then they're hoping to bring in a bowl game. Yeah. They're hoping to bring in some of these things, but it's not guaranteed. And the way the economy's going, a lot of these things are gone. You would think, if I was the mayor or a city leader, you would think you would go to some of these corporations like Honda, some of these other places, to get these investors to build that, like Troy University did when they built their stadium, but they didn't do it. They're gambling on taxpayers' money, and I don't elect my representative to gamble on our money. And this city's the last thing this city needed.
Well, they're honestly riverboat gambling on it, because them trying to redo that stadium to get that bowl bid, I just don't see them going back to the bowls here in Montgomery. You know, they completely wiped out the blue-gray tournament because of money and greed, I thought. And them trying to redo the facility and letting Alabama State go. Now, is Faulkner University and Huntington going to be able to use the facility to make up for that $100,000? Or are those two private institutions where they're not going to even join in with the city of Montgomery?
Those universities are building home stadiums. And, you know, they play one game a year at that stadium. So, you know, so Crampton Bowl is absolutely dependent on bringing other events in and high school games. And you see the decline of our inner city games, that it's just not, the money, it's just, the facility that they're building is just not needed. They could have, you know, when people don't realize originally when they came in, Bright did the upgrades, which was needed for the handicap facilities, different stuff, and they should have done the press box. There's small things they could have done and really benefited the city instead of going this route. And to me, it's terrifying what's happening. And it's happening in all these cities, and you're wondering who's really doing this. Who's really behind this? Because what they're doing is breaking all these cities. You can go to Prattville, any of these cities are struggling money-wise, and you look at their bad investments. Who's leading that charge? Who's doing that?
Well, this is kind of getting off topic a little bit, but you're talking about being broke, breaking the city and stuff like that. I found out today that 50% of all the states right now, as far as their unemployment compensation stuff, they're broke. They're broke, and they said by the end of 2011, 80% of the states will be completely broke, and they're all running to the government. You know, gimme. Mm-hmm. We got to have this. And where's it in, gang? And now these people are screaming and raising hell because after 99 weeks, almost 2 years, their unemployment benefits are going to run out. Yeah. What's going to happen here? What do you see happening here?
But you said it earlier, and Alex Jones. This is not us. Alex Jones said this a couple of years ago, and when they was arguing about the states' rights a few years ago, and we talked about it on this show, the states that was not in trouble was Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, because they had coastal money coming in. They have offshore stuff. Well, the Gulf is gone. Now the seafood industry is gone. Now they're going to get rid of the drilling. Then what's going to happen? These states that's not dependent on the government, the states that actually fought against it originally, are fixing to be broke. And now who actually broke it? The hands of doing it. They're doing it. That's what happened, and it all ties together. And whether or not you're saying we just conspiracy theories, but it is what it is, and it's too obvious for it not to be so. Jake, what are you thinking about, man?
What?
No, I just see you thinking over there, man.
I'm just listening, man. Just listening tonight.
I got a question for Jake then. How's the water heating business now, as far as since construction's bottomed out and the homeowners are not building as much? Are we sending more of our hot water heaters from America to overseas, or vice versa? Or is your business just at a stalemate? I mean, is Ream really pumping out a lot of hot water heaters?
I can answer that. Probably the tariffs. The tariffs. I don't know about the rain, but the tariffs that's been negotiated in these treaties and everything else with our trade outside the country is such high rate robbery. We don't have anything shipped out for anymore because we went out and agreed things, and it's not fair. We can bring anything in, we can't ship it to them because of what they charge us. They've actually restricted us because of the policies that were set by the American people not having any bottles. I'm sorry, Jake.
Yeah, we only, as far as I know, we only deal with U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
That's it. We have a factory in Mexico, but that's it. I mean, everything else is in-house. Most of the parts are made in the United States. Ream, I think, is probably about as American as you get right now.
Yeah.
As far as an American company. I mean, it's ridiculous.
This business dropped real bad.
Well, Sears is a chain, man. They sell all kinds of stuff. You can't really compare. It's like apples and oranges. But to be honest, they don't tell me much about sales. I've only been there like a year and a half, so I've only been through one sales meeting. It was optimistic this year because we're not considered a luxury item anymore. We're a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
People demand hot water. I deal with it every day. I mean, that's how people view it. People view it. So that's going to be one of the last things they give up. So it has to be really, really, really bad for us to really go that broke. I think.
You hope.
Well, Sean, what do you think about the housing market? If everything crashes in May, and all of us, I think, agree, by spring, there's going to be a lot of changes. So that only gives us January, February, March.
It's what you're slowly seeing now. You're going to see a lot of multi-families living in homes. That's the only way to survive now is basically do that. It's if you look at it, it's practically impossible now for two people to go to work and have a secure job and to buy and invest in homes. And the only way to do it for security is have multiple families staying there. Look at the price of daycare. Look at the price of things. It's hard, and the government is restricting American families, hard-working American families, to grow And that's what they're wanting to do. They want them to restrict them. They want to break them down because they want you to be able to have a handout. Because how angry do you get now when you go to work and you struggle and you in that grocery line and you thinking about in your mind about how much is on your debit card to buy your groceries, and that person walks up with them 2 big buggies of stuff that's not working and buys everything on food stamps,
full of ribeye,
and then has the 2 cases of beer up under it to pay. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
And it's all setting up to make. I mean, what do you do but get angry? You get angry because are you the sucker because you actually go to work? Are you the sucker doing that? Are you the sucker that's sweating about what's going to happen to your family? Are you the sucker that has to put your kids in public schools and they're using public schools as basically a reformatory where they make kids go back to school as part of their criminal stuff and they don't belong there, shouldn't be there, and what they're doing is breaking down society? Who's to blame? And there's only one person to blame. That's the government. Who's the government? Is the president re-elect? No, not anymore. It's the bigger picture behind it. And the only way you're going to do it is it's seemingly right now that the only thing that you're going to do is what's going to have to happen. And something I hate to even say, but it's going to have to happen to change. And it's coming, and it's a revolution. It's absolutely coming. It might not happen in the 10 years, but it's coming.
Maybe it's about time.
Yeah, it's coming. Because it's sad.
Dang it. Mic trouble. Anyway. They say the greatest trick the devil ever played was to convince everyone he didn't exist.
Yeah.
I think you can take that literally and you can take that figuratively on this. Because, the conservatives are saying it's liberals are saying it's conservatives, and we're both wrong.
Yeah.
It's neither one. Because each one represents a different set of values, but they're not awful values. They're not,
Go ahead.
Tyrus says, or is that Rowdy?
I think that's Tyrus.
That's Rowdy. Tyrus to Rowdy.
Yeah.
How about that? It's just a different set of values. It's fine to get worked up about it and all that. It's part of the fun of politics. It's fun to get worked up about it and have a fight about personal liberty versus justice. That's basically what you have to balance the two out. That makes politics work. But that's assuming. I think we're assuming too much that somebody's, you have an agenda. That when you get in there, you either have a libertarian or a conservative agenda. And people have no idea what that means now. People are completely ignorant of politics because if they knew politics, they knew what politics was about, they'd recognize the circus that's going on right now has nothing to do with politics. You might as well have a bunch of black bears sitting up there at the Senate.
That's
it wouldn't matter.
We're ignorant.
Wouldn't matter.
They've got us to be ignorant societies anyway. And what's the last thing America's really fought for?
Food stamps.
No, seriously. What's the last thing America's really fought for? I'm not talking about getting up on to the pedestal and talking about, we need change, vote for me. Is that really the last thing America's really fought for? That would absolutely go to the battle line where you would be blown away?
Yeah.
Because oil, a joke. The war in Afghanistan, a joke. Iraq, a joke. Vietnam was actually a joke. Cambodia, Somalia. Those are all conflict jokes that have to do. Is civil rights the last thing we fought for? And guess what? If we're not careful, that's fixing to happen again. Yeah. Real soon.
But the problem is they're jokes to the point. But some of our finest Americans died defending something that really didn't exist. And you got to believe them and have faith in doing that. And they take some of our bravest and they send them off. And then now, if you look what's happening with the gays in the military thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? The United States Marine Corps, the Marine that was in Afghanistan, 48% said that they would consider withdrawing out of the military, and their time's up. It's to allow gays in the military. To me, I think that's one of the most telling things there. Don't ask, don't tell. Why are we even addressing this right now? Why is this being? Why is this another thing to divide the American people? The military speaks. The military, that the combat people in it, it's clearly the percentages that they want. So don't ask, don't tell. That's the way it should be. But that's not what they're trying to do. They're going to divide us. And let's think about this. What's the one thing you can do? Number one, they're going to break us. They're going to make us pile into homes. When you have multiple families living in multiple homes, then you have sanitation issues and cleanliness issues and community issues regarding neighborhoods. Then what's going to happen what's the next phase? We'll be broke, you'll be jobless, you'll be angry, there'll be unrest, they'll call larger police actions, and the next phase would be germing. They'll send some to war, and they'll drop germs on you, and then they'll be able to put your tails in FEMA camp because that's the option to save you. What was it? The Black Plague was in the 1300s, and there's a guy that's written that book about that's when the reaper finally the story came up, and where that egg was cracked with the death and stuff. When the negative and the dark overbalance the good, that's almost what's happening now. Then you're starting to see the supernatural things happening in this field because of the imbalance, and that's what we talked about before, and that's what's happening now. It's all starting to kind of pile in. What?
Was there any questions?
Well, yeah,
Mike. I'm trying to kind of jiggle the mic around, so everybody forgive my pausing, but we've grown as a nation. We've grown into a bunch of people that love to see what we don't agree with outlawed. We have grown into a society of people that think that the majority group, or even the minority group in some cases, deserves to be able to actually tell us what to think, what to do in the privacy of our own homes. We've forgotten that how to make things work is it's not that you have to outlaw things. It's not that you have to ban things or strongly shove your opinion up someone's butt. It's you have to actually love one another, agree with one another, share, learn to accept their viewpoints and talk to them rationally, and hopefully have a world not where people are outlawed from doing bad things and that's their motivation, but they sincerely don't want to do the bad things. That we will have moral fiber again.
Man, that's a long way off.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't know that we've necessarily grown away from it. It's certainly, I think everyone can agree, a lot less ingrained in our society than it once was, because our idols seem to lack that now. But, it's something that it's going to have to start in people, and people are going to have to do it, and that's unpredictable.
Well, this is such a me society, and with the economy getting worse, things getting tougher, it makes people even more that way.
It does.
And it's that's a tall order to fill.
And only through hardship do you really earn those virtues. So, and people in general, I think history's proven we are unpredictable as anything. You can plan all day long, you can plan for camps all day long, but in the very end, we're unpredictable. You don't know what we're going to do. You can condition us one way, but we as humans tend to resist conditioning.
It's the middle class that are hurting, though. The working man that gets up every morning, that wants to provide for his family, that wants to do the right thing, that wants to get out and work his 12 hours, we're the ones that are suffering.
We have always been the one who suffered.
What are we going to do? Our insurance is going. Did y'all see Blue Cross Blue Shield? Whatever provider you got through Blue Cross, that they're going up in 2011. And if you do flex cards, that if your company does the flex card, which state does, city does, a lot of different companies do, where you can take money out of your check that goes to a card. 2011, you can't buy over-the-counter medicines. You have to buy prescription medicines.
That's right.
Or you can buy over-the-counter medicines with a prescription from a doctor. Then, the change was you have to pay for it out of pocket and then reimburse yourself on that. I mean, the middle class, the working man, is getting pounded with crap, because we're the ones out there working that are wanting to change America, that wanting to stand up for other people. And you're right. We've come to a society where it's me. Give me tax time. Oh, I can't wait to get a tax check. Give me something.
But the middle class in this country has always been the backbone of this country. We've always supported everyone.
Yeah.
We're the ones who get up and go to work. We're the ones who pay our taxes. We're the ones who pay our bills on time.
Now, are we the suckers?
Yes.
Yes,
Are we
we
the
are.
suckers of society?
Yes.
Sure we are.
And when's
If you look at it, but at the same time, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, we some people would say we were the suckers of society, but it depends on what your work ethic is, and how it makes you feel about yourself. Would it make you feel bad about yourself if you laid in the bed and collected checks?
I couldn't do it.
I absolutely could not do it either.
It's funny. Sean called, said, "What are you doing?" Said, "I'm laying here. You know, I've had an off day. The first time I think I've had an off day in it seems like 6-7 months." And I was like, "I'm just laying here," and it felt weird.
It makes you feel weird when you're not at work.
It really does. I like working every day, and I like being off on Sundays.
You know, I want to add something too. Think about everything that's happening. We talked about the middle class and everything else. You know, will we all agree, or do you not? Do you believe that there's a new world order or a bigger player behind the scenes? Do y'all believe that?
Yeah.
All right. Would y'all agree that the people, the countries they don't have control of, is the communist countries, Fidel Castro, Cuba, North Korea, or China? Think about it. Or do they really have control of China? Or are they in the cahoots?
Nobody knows.
Let me tell you, this is what I think. The WikiLeaks, all this come out, right? Let's think about this, guys. WikiLeaks. Didn't it say that China supported one Korea? Wasn't it saying how China would support one Korea in the WikiLeaks?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the one thing the New World Order would want in one Korea?
Yeah.
What's the one thing they want? China's going to control all the money. They're going to control everything. They're going to slap it all out, and they're going to get rid of these rogue countries.
Yeah.
And that's the setup of what's happening. Let me tell you, there would be nothing a bigger sucker than us in South Korea to get rid of North Korea, and they take hold because, number one, North Korea's an enemy. They've got nuclears. They got nukes and all this stuff. But really, how much of an enemy are they to us?
Nothing.
Now, how much of the enemy are they to the New World Order? They're huge.
A lot, because
they're huge.
Cuba's even bigger.
Cuba's even bigger. Yeah. You think about it. Now, now, am I saying before? Absolutely not. But I'm just saying, think about what's happening. Think about the big picture. And those WikiLeaks, go ahead and take heart to them and look at them, because there's proof in a lot of this stuff for you to look to, and there's something to it. And you know this, they're the bigger one that play. They're using these puppets, and they're sending our bravest to war and to die for them. And we really need to start thinking about what's happening. Look at these bigger pictures and what's going on.
And the WikiLeaks stuff, I think, actually drives home a point I was trying to make when I was talking about the dark internet a while back, about how this type of documentation isn't going to die if the web dies. Now that this technology is out there, it's cheap, it's available. Lots of people know how to do it. At the very worst, it'll go back to how it was, and you'll dial in through a ham radio to a message board. That's possible. You can do it. You can run it all out of your house. It's extremely hard to track because it's ham radio. You know, you can do it. It's possible. People will do it. That are, you know, hive mind, as it's called, and you know, that's not going to go away. And you know, I think the biggest thing to take out of all this talk tonight is that while it's doom and gloom and it's about what pretty much will happen, it's that it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be the end of society. It doesn't have to be. It's up to us, because there's a whole lot more of us, people that are common people, that aren't elitist, that aren't in control, than there are of them. When you come down to it, it comes down to personal decisions, personal choice, and what you would do in conjunction with your neighbors, with the people you know, the circle of friends you have, when it's called upon you. It comes down to your choice then. If you'll be a coward, or if you'll die for something you believe in. Eventually that choice could happen. And, you know, and you have to think, you know, what kind of world do you want to live in? And it starts on the couch here. I mean, it does. There's no other way. Those plans can be dashed. If us as a people, as a race, want it to happen, it can happen. They can't stop it. It just, you have to, as decisions have to be made now.
But you mentioned about the elitists. They are very few. But what there are many of, is that there are many elitists in a middle class level that's been taught a certain way, and they're the most dangerous ones. And you ask, there's a lot of people, maybe even in this room, that are bred a certain way to look at things, and they are a certain type of elitist, and are they good guys? No, they're not, because they would absolutely, if things turn, would understand how the chips are going to fall and would pick a side. And what side is that? It's a side that a lot of us would, if you ask yourself right now, you would pick the side, not the elitist side, but you absolutely see a big gap in society. And you absolutely look at the gap as almost a parasite. You do. Whether any American want to admit it or not, you do look at a certain piece of society as a parasite.
Yes.
And you can and you will pick the non-parasitic side, because you know why? Because the elitist has done that to you. And then to do that is what you got one group that's willing to fight the elitist, but they're on the elitist side against the parasite that's been created. That's a serious thing.
That's exactly right, because Pam and I were talking about this just here a while back. I have a real big problem with these people I know that there's nothing wrong with, but they get these checks because they are too fat to work.
Yeah. Where do they do that at? America.
And the amount of money they take out of my check every month, and nothing around is getting better. Schools aren't getting better, things like that. It's going to these people that are too sorry to work. And so you're right. I do have that view of they are parasites. My opinion is, you cut that check off, they'll lose weight, then they can get a job.
Yeah.
But there's 3 of them that live together. All 3 of them collect a fat check, and they bring home more money a month than I do.
Yeah.
I got a real problem with
Exactly.
that.
They all do.
I got a real problem with
all
that.
hell breaks loose, you would not think twice to burn their house.
Yeah.
Then you'd have pork skins.
Hey, I like pork skins.
And that time will come, and people will make choices they regret. And that's just part of it. It's going to have to happen. I'm not talking about in a lifetime, because this kind of thing, this kind of control, can only last so long.
But it's gonna happen. If I'm gonna make a prediction, it's gonna happen in our lifetime. Yeah. Are we gonna be old enough to react to it?
No.
I don't know. But I think it's definitely gonna happen in our lifetime, and it's happening a lot faster. And could it happen in 2012? Absolutely, it could happen in a blink of an eye. Uh-huh. I mean, all it would take are solar flares. All it would take is any type of nuclear exchange. All it would take is anything that comes up that flip that switch, and then it would happen. And then you would have to make a decision in an instance where you stood. And that's the point. Are you going to be willing to die for what your beliefs are, and would you be willing to find others to believe that? And then that's where you're going to have to pick, and that's where you're at. And then that's a terrifying thing. And that's where you really got to start really getting in tune with your faith, what you think you need to do, and plan. Be prepared to stay in your house for 2 weeks.
Yes. When I was talking, I have faith in people, but not that amount of faith. I don't think it'll happen in our lifetime as far as being able to buck this. All the cards are going to have to be on the table, and there can't be a doubt for this to happen, because unfortunately, I think Hump said it before, we're like alcoholics. We have to hit rock bottom before we'll do anything at this point in society. And rock bottom hadn't come yet. It will. I mean, it's not going to be when everyone's broke. It's going to be later down the line when you start having people that have grown up doing this and don't know any better, and that seed of revolution, of rebellion, gets planted again.
Well, look at the generations. Look at the generations. Look where everybody's at. Think about what the generation was that went to World War II. My grandfather on my father's side was in D-Day. He was there, and then you think about that, and then you watch a TV show like The Ghost Prophecy. I'm just throwing that. I'm gonna throw that out there because I thought about it. And when the guy was talking about he's questioning He called his wife, telling her he loves us because he's afraid he's going to go in this room and the entity's going to kill him. And he was locked into a room of a ghost, right? Let's just think about it. Think about that and how that was played up. And think about all these fine young Americans that stormed the beaches of Normandy with their wives, their mothers, their families at home. That's a generation that was challenged and stood up to it. And they did that. This generation hasn't been challenged in anything. We're so weak. We're so blinded. We're so fat to these handouts that it should be an insult to this generation. It's time for us all to start getting a hold of our manhood, getting a hold of our families, getting in touch with what's really important and start standing up. And that's where the change is going to start. It's going to start individually. And that's the point of getting in touch. You know, no matter if you're gay or not, you're still a man or you're still a woman. Get in touch with that and be who you're supposed to be and start making these changes. And that's what Americans going to have to do.
Hump, he didn't really mean put your hand on it. So.
Oh, okay.
Help us getting in touch with it.
I want to get in touch with this. You know, I've said it over and over, and it goes back to the middle class, and it goes back to our school systems. I told y'all the beginning of this year, if we were not careful in America, we were going to have more Columbines. And guys, we've had 3 this month.
Yeah.
The guy that wanted to blow up the Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's Muslim or whatever he was. You know, he wasn't but what, 18, 17?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. The kid that took the hostages on the 2nd floor, guys and gals, if we are not careful, I said it and I mean it, it's going to be close to home. And when it happens here at home, we're not going to be able to know what to do because it's going to be such a shock to us. But it's going to happen in the school systems and all this tax that we pay here in the state of Alabama. We've got to tighten up our public school systems, but Sean hit it on the head. It's a cesspool for the correction system. Our public school system has turned into a correctional facility.
And that started happening in our generation.
Yes.
And go ahead and look. Let me tell you, think about when we was in school. This was in the 90s. I guarantee you, if a kid walked up in there like that dude in Oregon, whatever, and started saying that he's going to blow this up, he hated America, just how he was, I guarantee you he would have told it a beatdown.
Yeah.
He would have had the brakes beaten off him.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't be a race issue because we went to an African-American school majority. They would have had the brakes beat off of him. And then with a little white kid with a gun, I guarantee you, somebody in our classroom would have tried to be a hero. Yeah. And I'm not saying anybody was wrong in that school. I'm talking about somebody would have made a move. You know, that's just a generational change.
Yeah,
you know?
Kids have no guts now.
Yeah.
No backbone.
I mean, God forbid he would have threatened to blow it up in like a football coach's class.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? Because he wouldn't have stopped it.
Or if there'd been some girls that I liked in that class and he pulled that gun out, I'd have beat the brakes off of him.
Man, I'm just being honest tonight.
You know, the point was, probably not right off, but after a while, after you sat there and that kid was talking, your mind, somebody would have tried to be a hero.
Yeah.
It would have happened. It just would have happened.
Everybody there would have been looking for that moment of weakness, and it would have happened.
Yes, it would have happened.
It'd have been like the equivalent to all 4 of us, like maybe at Jack's, and the dude come in to rob us, and he's took us all by hostage at the Jack's. And I think we'd all look at each other and we're going to try this.
You know what's so sad? Me and Huff have had a pact since the day we started driving. I said, if anybody ever tries to jack us, I'm dead. Just make sure you get him. We've had a pact. That's been our pact.
Make sure you kill him.
Go ahead and let him get me.
We're going to get killed anyway, but please shoot him and kill him.
Because if somebody has a gun on you, the odds are they're going to shoot you. Go ahead and take him out.
Yeah.
I know it's silly. But that's been our frame of mind, and it's not good. But it's almost a frame of mind that's missing in America today.
Exactly.
You're so correct. And you know what? On that note, it's break time.
Man, an hour's gone by.
We are back from break, having good times. David's got in touch with his manhood.
Yes.
It's been It was a really impassioned first hour, so I'm really looking forward to the second hour with our guest, Mr. Nick Begich. I didn't want to mess his last name up because I have a bad habit of doing that, even more so than Sean, oddly enough. And we're going to talk about his book, Time for Truth, and his personal journey. And he's really interesting. I've done some reading up on him, and I think we're going to have a pretty good second hour to follow that very impassioned first hour up with. And how are you doing tonight, Mr. Begich?
I'm fine, thank you. Is this Sean I'm talking to?
This is Jake, actually. That's okay.
Oh, hi, Jake.
You're not the first guest to call me Sean, and you can just call me Sean if it makes you feel comfortable.
No, that's fine. Be glad to call you Jake. I'm fine, Jake. Pleasure to be with you tonight.
Yes, sir, and us, you. I really appreciate you donating your time here tonight with us and joining us for this hour. I guess I'd like to kind of start at the beginning here, and what were the beginnings of your spiritual journey? What sort of started hinting you onto that?
Well, let me share with you and your listeners. I was born outside of Boston, in a city called Chelsea. I was not a New Age person. My mother and father, it was a very poor neighborhood. My mother and father never owned a car, never had a house, never had a savings account. I was very fortunate. I graduated high school. I got a scholarship to go play football at the University of Florida. And I found myself years later living the American dream. I owned several corporations, was married with a wonderful family in a nice neighborhood. And a friend of mine persuaded me to go to a psychic. Now, I didn't have a belief in psychics at that time. My vision of a psychic was a person with a turban on their head and a crystal ball in front of them. And I found that I was wrong. And when I was visiting the psychic, he was in a trance. He never looked at me, didn't know my name, knew nothing about me. But during the middle of the presentation, he said to me something that changed my entire, began the journey I'm on now. He said to me, there's going to come a time in your life when you're going to be speaking in front of thousands of people in live audiences and millions on television and radio, which, by the way, has happened now. And it has to do with the time that you walked with the Master 2,000 years ago. Now, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was not a religious, I didn't have a religion then, neither do I have now. My relationship with God is a spiritual relationship. And it took, over the next 7 years, I had confirmation after confirmation that indeed my spirit and soul had lived in a person who walked with the Master 2,000 years ago. I eventually went to a local psychic that was internationally known. Her name was Laura McClory. In the middle of the presentation, she stood up with her eyes as big as saucers. She said to me, "Oh my God, Nick, oh my God, you knew Jesus, you knew Jesus." After the session was over, Laurie persuaded me to meet with a woman by the name of Julia Ingram, who was a past life regressionist. In other words, she was an age regressionist under hypnosis. And Julia and I met for a period of 6 months. We had 13 sessions, each lasting 2 hours, for a total of 26 hours, which we captured the entire sessions on tape. And under hypnosis, I had the entire memory of the Apostle Paul. Again, as a young boy running through his father's fields chasing sheep, I south of Tarsus in the area of Cilicia, which today is in Turkey, until Paul moved to the Holy Land at the age of 18. And when he was 20 years old, he met Jesus, who was 2 years older than him, who was 22. And the information that we received was so incredible, it filled in many, many, many gaps in the life of Paul as well as in Jesus. And in many cases, it conflicted with the New Testament. What happened then, we decided to go ahead and make a manuscript out of it and have it published. And we had 4 major publishing companies in New York that wanted to publish the book. You still with me, Jake?
Oh, yes, sir. Sure am. I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm calling you from a cell phone out in the middle of a football. Anyway, that's why I asked. At any rate, what happened was that we had 4 major publishing companies that wanted to publish the book, and I didn't have the courage to do it. I thought that people would not believe the story. They would think it was fabricated, or they would think I was insane. It would destroy my private life, my corporate, my professional life, as well as my family. And I decided not to do it. And then on August 14th of 1995, I had the first of many, many, many angelic experiences. And I didn't believe in angels and spirit guides at that time. I thought they belonged in the same toy box as the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny. And one of the things they told me, they said, "Nick, God gave every one of us free will, so you can choose to do what you want. But we're going to bring so many witnesses around you, around the numbers 444, which means the power of God's love. 444 is our way of letting you know that we are in your life, to give you courage when you feel fear, to give you hope when you feel despair." And that very evening, Jake, I got a phone call from a gentleman who I'd only met once before in my life. He told me he was calling me from Geneva, Switzerland, in the Hilton Hotel. He said, "Nick, something woke me up. I looked at the clock. It's 4:44 in the morning, and I have absolutely no idea why I'm calling you." 2 days later, I went into my office on a Monday morning. There was a friend of mine waiting for me by the name of Rick Eckhart. He had 5 sheets of paper with him, and he said, Nick, I woke up in the middle of last night, which I never do. I felt compelled to write all these things down. I don't know what they mean, but I know I'm supposed to give them to you. At the top of the page, he has a circle around 4:44 a.m. Now, 2 of those pages are in my book, in my book, Time for Truth. But the things he'd written down were the very same things that the spirit guides had told me 2 days earlier on a Saturday afternoon. And that became an incredible journey that many, many people around me began to have 444 experiences. In fact, when my first book came out, it was a bestseller in 1997 called The Messengers. I received over 10,000 letters the first 6 months, Jake, and half the people were having 444 experiences, just as they are now regarding my new book. If people were to go to my website, nickbunick.com, B-U-N-I-C-K is my last name spelled, nickbunick.com, they'll find hundreds and hundreds of people that are posting daily that are having 444 experiences all around the world after having read my new book. So I'm on a mission right now. The first half of my book is really and truly designed to help people understand their relationship with God, to help people understand what their purpose in life is, be able to have a better life than the life we live now, and to know indeed that God is in our lives, and every one of us has angels and spirit guides. In the second half of the book, I'm taking on the church. I feel that for the last 1,600 years, because the church was formed in the 4th century, millions of people have been tortured and murdered in the name of God. The church has distorted the messages of Jesus and Paul. Messages are supposed to bring us love, would change the message of fear. Messages are supposed to bring us compassion, would change the message of guilt. And messages are supposed to bring us together as brothers and sisters all over the world. Instead, would use to polarize people, saying that instead, if you don't believe what we're teaching you, God's going to punish you. You're going to go to hell. So that, in a synopsis, about a 1 minute, 2 minute synopsis, is the mission I'm presently on right now, Jake.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I think it's something that really has permeated our society for a while now. At least since I would believe the 1950s. I wasn't alive until 1983, so I can only really talk in my experiences. But I know that it seems that less and less people are really turning to the church for truth or for spiritual guidance, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that it seems to be Christianity was warped to a degree.
Well, it's true what you're saying, because my objective is not to hurt the church. I want to save the church. Even though I'm not practicing the Christian religion in this lifetime, I want to help the church. Only about 30% of Christians around the world are attending churches. Even in Italy, where 95% of the people there are Catholics, only 29% attend church. And in Germany, only 18%. In our own country, about 28%. Hundreds and hundreds of churches are closing down every year across the world because people don't want to hear anymore that we're sinners and God's going to punish us, we're going to go to hell. Let me share with you and your readers, your listeners, some of the truths that have been falsified. 2,000 years ago, outside of the walls of Jerusalem was a valley in Hinnom. There was a dump that burned 24 hours a day. His name was Gehenna. The word Gehenna in English is the word hell. Translation from Hebrew, it's the word hell. And that's where the church got the concept of hell, which they went ahead and established in the 4th century. There's so many things. The word disciple, for example, comes from the ancient word discipulus. The church tells us that Jesus had 12 pupils. And you have this impression that these men were his bodyguards or his caretakers. What they don't tell you is the word disciple comes from the ancient word discipulus, which means pupils. That Jesus has had 12 pupils. He had hundreds of pupils, and half of them were women. But they did not want to acknowledge the role that women played in the life of Jesus and Paul. And when Paul went around the Roman Empire, creating churches all around the Roman Empire, half of his administrators were women. But when he wrote about them in his letters that they printed in the Gospels, in the 4th century, when they rewrote the Gospels, they changed the women's names to men's names. It's time for the church to allow women to be priests, and it's time for them to allow the priests, both men and women, to be married and have families. If they did, we'd have a tremendous number of new priests in the world who are dedicated to wanting to teach the true messages of just Jesus and Paul. And you wouldn't have the problems we've had. The question of pedophile priests and the abuse of children, that hasn't been going on for just 40 years. That's been going on for 1,600 years, Jake. You'd have an entirely new concept of religion in which people would understand that what the church would be teaching is that people are embracing universal compassion, universal love in their lives, and that every one of us are brothers and sisters. We all have the same parent, our God, and there shouldn't be a polarization of people. So these are some of the things. Sure, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, through reading some of your stuff, it's pretty apparent that you believe in a form of reincarnation, and it seems that you also have some roots in Christianity as far as your beliefs. And I was just wondering how you reconcile that, how you believe reincarnation fits in with the Christian tradition. Not necessarily the one that's been going on for 1,600 years, but just in the pure aspect of a Christian tradition.
Well, it's very interesting because what the church teaches us today is that we're over here on the left, God's over here on the right, and the church is in the middle. And you can only find God through the church, and this is not right. Because with reincarnation, you have your own relationship with God, in addition to what relationship you might have through a religion. But the interesting thing is, 2,000 years ago, Jake, the Judaic religion believed in reincarnation. There were three sects of the Judaic religion: the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Essenes. And the Pharisees, by far, were the majority of the Jewish people at that time. And they believed in reincarnation, as did Jesus also. And what happened in the 4th century, when they rewrote the Gospels, originally they were written in Aramaic. From Aramaic, they went to Greek. From Greek, they went to Latin. And then in the 4th century, when Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, formed the Roman Catholic Church, they translated it from Latin into contemporary Latin, which is called Vulgate Latin. And it took them 25 years to do that. And they made many, many changes, and they tried to purge everything dealing with reincarnation. They tried to purge out of the New Testament. And they missed it in 2 places. For example, in one of the places, in Matthew, in chapter 16, Jesus, by the name, 2,000 years ago, his name was Joshua. Joshua was his name, and in the 4th century, they changed his name to the Latin definition of Joshua, translation, which is Jesus. I'm more comfortable calling him Joshua, if you don't mind. But what happened was that Joshua says to his disciples that he meets along the Sea of Galilee, "Who are people saying that I am?" And this is in Matthew, in chapter 16. And his disciples say, "Well, people are saying that you are he, the prophet Elijah, who, by the way, had lived 700 years earlier than Joshua was born." And Joshua says, "No, he was a prophet. Elijah's already come. They took his life just as surely someday will take mine also." In the next paragraph, the disciples are saying they knew that he was talking about that John the Baptist was the reincarnation of the prophet Elijah. So that's one of 2 places where they missed the purging of reincarnation. But for the first several hundred years of Christianity, all the Christian leaders believed in reincarnation. Many, many of the writings, they constantly talk about reincarnation. And then in the year 553 A.D., 553 A.D., 500 years after Joshua died on the cross, the church had what they call the 5th Ecumenical Council, and they passed 15 resolutions. And the very first resolution they passed, if anybody continues to preach reincarnation or teach it, to be communicated with the church, it'd be a curse on them. And that ended discussion of reincarnation and the teaching of reincarnation within the Christian religion. And that was in 553 A.D. And people don't know this. The church doesn't share that information with the people. And I think it's important that people know that every one of us have our own relationship with God. We are part of God, and God is part of us. And because we have the Spirit of God inside of us, that's why we are eternal and immortal. We're not human beings who by coincidence have a spirit with a soul. We are spirits with a soul that are having a human experience.
And as you were talking about that, as I understand it, there were sects of Christianity, often referred to as, the Gnostic Gospels, those documents and those teachings that were wiped out after, maybe not shortly, but eventually after that. And a lot of their teachings, which some people hold to be more close to the true Christianity that Christ was teaching, was wiped out. It was destroyed for a large part. And we know very little about what they actually taught.
Well, that's absolutely true, because in the 4th century, when the Roman Catholic Church was formed, there were a number of different sects of Christianity. And the one that was selected by Constantine, who went ahead and appointed the first pope and the first council of Nicaea, is the one that has just the 4 Gospels in it. And all the other Gospels, all the other stories, such as the Gnostic stories, were banned and were no longer allowed to be taught within the church. And the church took the position that only the church can translate and interpret what the New Testament says. and the followers of the church would be held responsible for just to listen to the messages given by the church. They could not question them. Well, one of the leaders of the church at that time was a man named Augustine. This is in the latter part of the 4th century. Augustine came up with a great idea. He said to his colleagues, if we could get people to believe that a moment a child is born out of the mother's womb, that child is condemned by God to go to hell, unless they join the church and we perform a ceremony on them and give that child redemption and atonement. And his colleagues said, well, how in the world are you going to get people to believe that a little baby born is condemned by God to go to hell because they're sinners? And he said, well, we'll tell them that Adam, when the snake in the garden persuaded Eve to motivate Adam to take a bite of an apple, God was so angry that he said, from this day on, every child born will be condemned to go to hell. In other words, every one of us are sinners from the day we're born, unless the church performs a ceremony. Of course, I'm talking about original sin. As absurd as that is, when that concept came about 1600 years ago, it's still being taught today in the church. And can you imagine, Jake, if we have 2 billion Christians in the world, and if only the 2 billion Christians have the ability of going through the ceremony of the baptism so that they're redeemed, they have redemption and atonement, the other 4.6 billion people in the world are all going to go to hell because they're not Christians. So hell must be 3 times the size of heaven then, based on those teachings. It's wrong. People don't want to hear anymore that they were born as sinners. They don't want to hear anymore that God's going to punish them. They're going to go to the imaginary hell that the church created. And that's why people are losing their faith and going to church, and why so many churches are empty and only about 30% of the population of the world, Christians, are attending church anymore. And I feel for it. People need religion in their lives, but it's got to be the true messages of Joshua and Paul, not the fabricated messages that were done in order to put fear in people's heart, in order for the church to control the lives of people.
I agree. There's been several people that I know that have made the comment that they follow the religion of Christ and not the religion about Christ. And there is really a distinction there as far as how you believe and how you're taught. And I think there in every sect or every denomination of Christianity there's give and take. There's good and bad. For instance, the Roman Catholic Church, you don't have to depend entirely on the Bible for all your things. You can actually read the works of certain saints and people that actually do have a pretty good idea. They're not all of them, of course, were completely off the mark, but you also have a lot of dogma you have to deal with, which isn't in some denominations. But then you throw out the good stuff, like of all those teachings, and eventually you have to become, like how they call people, eclectic Wiccans, so to speak. You have to become an eclectic Christian to really.
Well, yeah. Well, when you take into consideration, Jake, that 2/3 of the population in the world are made up of Christians and Muslims. Those are your 2 major religions in the world. And both of them teach that if you do not believe what we're teaching you, what we are preaching, God's going to punish you, you're going to go to hell. How can we have peace and love in this world? How can we have a world filled with compassion and where people care about one another and recognize we're all brothers and sisters when the 2 major religions in the world that represent 2/3 of the population of the world are saying that, no, you have to believe in our religion or God's going to punish you, and when you die, you're going to go to hell. I've had so many, when I used to go around the country speaking in all the major cities in the country, and when I would share with people that they're not sinners, they were not born as sinners, they're not responsible for the death of Joshua. Joshua didn't die in the cross. I'll talk about that in a few minutes also. They're not responsible for the death of Joshua, and Joshua died on the cross because of their sins. So many people who all their life lived with this tremendous guilt of being told since they were a child that Jesus died because of them, because they were sinners, so their sins could be forgiven. This is tremendously damaging to people. I had a woman today that went ahead and wrote in my website. She said, Nick, all my life I've lived in misery thinking that I was responsible for the death of Jesus because he died on the cross because I was a sinner. And after I read your book, Time for Truth, I released it. And for the first time in my life, I don't carry that guilt anymore, and I feel like a brand new person. I'd have people come up to me afterwards and crying, saying, "Thank you for releasing from me that guilt and pain that I carried with me." It's wrong for the church to teach that. If it truly is true that Jesus died on the cross to forgive people's sins, then I ask the question, when those priests were abusing the children, after they abused 4 children, did he say, "Oh, okay, Jesus died on the cross for me, so I guess my sins are forgiven. So tomorrow I can start abusing some more children"? And 2 weeks later, did he say again, "Well, I guess my sins are forgiven because Jesus died on the cross. I commit more sins"? Back in the 13th century, there was a town by the name of Trieste in Spain. It was during the Inquisition time. And the church built a huge oven. Over a 10-year period, 1,000 babies were thrown into that oven alive, and the parents were forced to watch because the parents refused to accept the teachings of the church. And I asked the question, after they threw 10 babies in that oven, did they say, "It's okay because we were forgiven because Jesus died for our sins on the cross," and then threw another 10 babies? It doesn't work that way. Jesus lived for us. The church has made an industry out of his death, and it's not what Joshua wants. Joshua wants us to celebrate his life and his teachings, not his death. And unfortunately, that's the things that we're dealing with today, as well as the last 1,600 years.
Yeah, it seems that I agree that the church does seem to have forgotten their role on earth as the body of Christ, as Christ or Yeshua, however you want to call it. I like Christ for some reason, but they're his embodiment on earth. They seem to have forgotten that. I agree with you with the condemning. Man, I can't get that. That's one of the big things I think that turns me off is the condemning. It's not right, to a degree. You should. I think people have a hard time drawing the line between holding someone responsible for doing something bad and outright condemning someone and judgment.
Yes.
I think we've lost our way in teaching that. Yeah.
And I don't think it's a case where the church has forgot. I think it was deliberate. It was deliberate of the people in the 4th century to create these concepts in order to control the lives of people, because they believed that they control the lives of people. There were 80 million people living in the Roman Empire at that time, and they felt they controlled their lives easier through fear than through love. So it was intentional in the church. But we're 1,600 years down that path. We shouldn't be doing that anymore. There's a tremendous opportunity for the church to become the leader in the world in order to allow people to embrace universal love and universal compassion. And as a matter of fact, in the year 2000, Pope Paul Pius, he said, I have a speech here that he gave in the Vatican. He said, we have to stop telling people there's such a place as hell. There is no such place as hell. He says, what is hell is that people who are living their lives not according to God's will. Those are the people that are living their lives in hell. But there is no physical place like hell. And the response that the people who actually run the church said, no. We have to keep hell in there in order to keep fear in the hearts of the sinners. And they rejected the Pope's pleadings to tell the people that there is no such place as hell. That it was strictly something that was made up back in the 4th century.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree completely. Yeah, it's spirituality. You have to kind of watch your terms a lot of times, because religion in itself, as we talk about the institution of religion, the politics of religion, the government of religion, it's not a good thing. There's too many hands in the pot, so to speak. But your spirituality is still there, and I think a lot of people now are waking up and starting to make that distinction between spirituality and having a religion, and that those are actually at times two very different things. Are you finding that a lot when you go to speak?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've been very blessed, and I've developed some friendships around the world with some of the most evolved spiritual people I know in the world. And quite frankly, none of them have a religion. Every one of them, the relation with God is a spiritual relationship. But I believe that religion can play a very, very important part in people's lives. But I think you reach a point. I ask people to envision inside of you a pyramid of 1,000 steps. At the very, very top of the pyramid is God and Christ consciousness. And every one of us is on a different level of step. And our purposes in our life is to climb those steps one at a time till we eventually reach the very top, which could take many lifetimes, but that's okay. But that is our purpose in life, is to keep evolving spiritually until eventually we reach the top of that pyramid, and we become at one with that part of God that's inside of us and the Christ consciousness that's inside of us. And many people might be on step 350. And when they make a transition of their soul, by that I mean when they die, because I don't believe there is such a thing as death, but when their soul makes that transition out of their body and goes into the spiritual world, it's the same as if you were a child in the 5th grade. When you took the summer off, and when you came back to school in September, you didn't come back as a junior in high school or a senior in college. You came back exactly the place you left off. You start the first day of the 6th grade of school. It's the same thing when we come back in this next lifetime. We come back at exactly the stair that we left off at. If we made our transition of our soul when we were in step 350, then that's the step we come back on in order to continue evolving higher and higher by acts of compassion and love to our brothers and sisters as we climb those steps one at a time until we eventually reach the top. I have friends of mine in different parts of the world that I honestly and truly believe are living saints. I have seen them perform miracles. I've seen them heal people that were crippled, heal people that were deaf, heal people that were dying of cancer. And these people, they all started with religion, but eventually they reach a point when they're so high up in that pyramid that the relationship with God is strictly a pure spiritual relationship. But again, I say that religion plays a very important part in people's lives. The important thing is the church has to acknowledge, just as the title of my book says, that it's time for truth. Acknowledge that many of the teachings of the church were fabricated in the 4th century, and to adopt the new teachings. Allow women to become priests. Allow men and women priests to be married and have children. Acknowledge that there's no such place as hell. Acknowledge there's no such thing as the devil. And acknowledge that we're not born sinners because of a woman that persuaded her husband to eat an apple. Well, it's so insane that I don't want to use the word insane. I think it's incredible that the church is still teaching this 1,600 years after this. I want the church to become the leader in the world by acknowledging the truth. And I don't think people, rather than people being angry at the church and saying that you've deceived us for the last 1,600 years, I believe they'll embrace the leaders of the church and the clergy, embrace them with love and saying, and gratitude for having the integrity to say, yes, this is the truth now, and let us move on now with a new beginning. And bring the love and have universal love and universal compassion, and recognize that every one of us are brothers and sisters, regardless of what we ritually practice.
And I want to take a moment to pause on what you said earlier about there not being a devil and clarify it for our listeners as far as your viewpoint on that. I understand you don't believe there's a big bad guy, I suppose. This is a way we could interchange the devil, but do you believe in evil spirits? Do you believe it's... and by evil, I don't mean a pure being of hate or, negativity, I guess would probably be a better word, and negative spirits, spiritual beings. Do you believe that they exist?
Well, let me address both the points that you made.
Sure.
In the Old Testament, Satan was not an evil angel. He was an angel of God that God would use for different purposes. For example, in Numbers, and I'm not saying these stories are true, but these are the stories in the Old Testament. There was a man that was on his way to meet the Canaanites to tell them where the Israelites were located so they could attack them, and God sent down a Satan angel, it says in Numbers, in order to impede the donkey, the mule, so he couldn't go on the path. There are a number of different places in Job also where it refers to God using a Satan angel as a messenger to do a certain specific task. So it was the church who created the concept of the devil in the 4th century as being evil. Now, in the second part of your question, I believe there is evil in the world, but I don't believe in evil spirits. I believe that there is such a thing as collective consciousness that can either be evil or love. Go back to Germany during the time of the Nazi regime. I believe those people were totally involved with a collective consciousness of evil that they received and were indoctrinated from their leaders. But I don't believe it had to do with the spirit world being evil. I believe that man has a right of free will, and sometimes we exercise our free will improperly. As we know throughout society, when there's been evil acts, and just as a terrorist act, it's an act of evil not because of an evil spirit is persuading that person to commit an act of terrorism. It's because that person has a gift of free will that God gave them, and they're using it to hurt somebody rather than doing something which is an act of compassion and love towards the person, just the opposite.
And I don't mean to take something that you stated in more of an overarching way and take it down to something minuscule, but I think it begs the question, as far as those beliefs, do you have any opinion on possession, on what I guess the Catholic Church would term as demonic possession? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. I first want to share a story with you. About 5 years ago, I was watching one of the news shows, one of the cable news shows, and there was a priest on that said he was in charge in the city of New York of being the one that does the releasing of the demons. And they said to him, "How many have you done?" He said, "Well," he said, "I've probably had about 500 cases." They said, "Well, how many have you actually got the demon to release them?" He said, "None." They said, "None." He said, "That's right." He said, "None." I recently read an article that was put out by people who have done a study on this, and they said that they have totally satisfied in their mind that there's no such thing as possessed by demons, that the person is a sick person, the person has some very, very serious mental problems, but it's not a case of a demon being possessing them. 2,000 years ago, they talked about Joshua going around releasing people from demons within them. But the word demons actually goes back 500 years earlier, back during the time of Socrates and Plato, and the word was daemons. It was spelled D-A-E-M-O-N-S, not D-E-M-O-S. And what daemons meant was undesirable traits. It was people who got sick as a result of they had so much anger in their heart, or hatred in their heart, or greed, or jealousy. They were called daemons, these particular traits that were wrong traits for people to have, which caused sickness even today in our lives. And what Joshua was doing, he was getting people to release them. There was acts of forgiveness. In fact, I have an entire chapter in my book, Time for Truth, which is called Forgiveness, which goes over in absolute detail, word for word, the methods that Joshua would use when he was getting people to forgive themselves. So basically, it would be a case like, has there been a time in your life when you deceived another person and left a mark in your soul, and you hurt that person? Now's the time to forgive yourself. God forgives you, I forgive you, meaning Joshua, and your angels forgive you, now forgive him. And he would go through every one of those different characteristics that are bad characteristics, the characteristics that cause people to have within their own hearts sadness and depression, and cause sickness within them. And that's what Jesus was doing 2,000 years ago. They weren't demons, they were daemons that he was getting people to release. Those characteristics of their lives that were hurting them and were selfishness and were causing injury to other people because of their behavior.
And
I know I'm telling you.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to ask you, I was thinking along those lines, and I completely lost it. David looked at me, and I completely lost it. The train has derailed. But
I'm sorry. I'm giving you so much information. It's coming so fast. I'm sitting in a parking lot of my son was playing basketball, and I had to leave halfway through the fourth quarter. That's why I'm talking to you on a cell phone, and they were ahead by 1 point. This is the first time I've ever did this. First time I've ever had a radio interview, and I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of them sitting in the parking lot in my car and on a cell phone. So I hope you're hearing me okay. But my adrenaline's pumping a little. My adrenaline's pumping a little too high, coming directly from the ball game into our radio interview.
That's okay. That's how we like it. That's okay. And I remembered. I remember now. What I was going to talk about was the concept of duality that has been cultivated in our culture. That there's a good and an evil part of everybody, and there's that concept of duality. And if you look at Christ, he never really taught that. He always taught that there was one, that there was being fragmented in your soul, and there was your soul being one. There wasn't necessarily a good and evil, but that you should strive to be one in your intention and one in your soul. Do you find that? What do you think about that particular interpretation of it?
I totally agree with you. That's exactly how Joshua felt. We don't have evil within us, but people are capable of performing acts of evil, but it's not because we have evil inside of us. I want to distinguish between the spirit and soul. I know that preachers often use the words spirit and soul as if they're two separate things, if they're the same thing, and they're not the same thing. The spirit is that part of God inside of us, and that's why we are eternal and immortal, because we have God's spirit inside of us. But what the soul is the personality of the spirit. It's the value systems of the spirit. It's all the memories that we've ever had in any of our lifetimes is contained within our soul memory. So just the best example I can give is if our body represented our spirit, and our personality and our intellect and our value systems and our likes and dislikes and all of our memories represented our soul. And that's where the soul comes in. So it isn't the case of people having an evil spirit, because what Joshua said and what you just said is exactly the same. That is exactly what he said 2,000 years ago. That people don't have evil within them, but people are capable of performing evil acts because of the free will that they have. And all of this is recorded within our soul memory. The reason I was able to tap into the memory of Paul verbatim is a result of the fact that I was able to tap into my soul memory. But every one of us have those soul memories, every one of your past lives. I am no different than every one of your listeners, as well as yourself too. I don't have any special, well, God did give me a special gift of channeling. I do channel information directly from the spirit world, and that was a gift that they gave me, which I didn't have until just perhaps in the last 8 years. But every one of us are the same. We're a child of God. We have God's spirit inside of us, and we have our soul. And every lifetime that we have is our soul. It's in our soul memory of all those lifetimes. And that's why a psychic is able to tell you, a legitimate psychic. There's a lot of psychics that aren't. But a legitimate psychic can tell you about your past, your future, and your present, because they tap into your soul memory, your soul mind, and all that information is in your soul mind. Does that make sense, Jay?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the concept. And I kind of want to segue that into, you have, like you're saying, the soul mind, sort of the higher you, I guess you'd say, and your higher personality. If we were talking, in Freudian terms, your superego. And again, to bring up, sort of the Catholic dogma of guardian angels, and I know that you've spoken some about angels, and some believe, everyone has their own guardian angel. How do you feel? Does that belief tie into your ideals at all, or your belief system?
Absolutely. From the day we're born, angels are assigned to us, and spirit guides are assigned to us. And the spirit guides will change as time goes on. If a person, for example, was a musician, they would have spirit guides who have talents from previous lifetimes. You see, an angel is a species of its own. It's never lived on Earth. But a spirit guide is a spirit that did live on Earth at one time, and now they're in the spiritual world, and their responsibility is to help guide us through our lives. And if you are a person who is a doctor, you'd have spirit guides who have medical knowledge. If you're a person who is a couch potato, you have a couch potato spirit guide or a couch potato angel. But there's nothing wrong with that either. It doesn't mean they're not a good angel or a good spirit guide. But God is like a CEO of a corporation, and He has many people, many spirit guides and angels who are God's messengers, who are assigned to us from the day we're born. And they can change at different times in our lives, depending on what our needs are. And I know many people may not believe this, but I will say this. I challenge any person who's an agnostic or an atheist or doesn't believe what I'm sharing to read just the first half of my book, where I talk about miracles. And I don't talk about any miracle in which I do not have witnesses with me, who I name by name and dates, that were there that witnessed the miracles. And I truly believe with all my heart and soul that they also then will believe that indeed every one of us has angels and spirit guides in our lives.
And I know you mentioned earlier a little bit about knowing people that were living saints, so to speak. And I kind of wanted to get your opinion on some of the people that are considered, I guess, Christian mystics, like St. John of the Cross, Padre Pio to a degree. Just sort of the more famous names to drop out there. I think a lot of people have lost touch with the fact that, just like a lot of New Age beliefs and I hate to say Wiccan beliefs, but it pops in my head, that Christianity itself has a long tradition of ritual work as well. It really does, and mysticism. And do you know? Can you kind of elaborate on that some? You think?
Well, I can talk about the ones that I know personally in this lifetime.
Sure.
One of the women is a woman by the name of Sarah O'Mara, and Sarah is about 40 years ago. Sarah was dying of cancer, and she went to a function which a woman evangelist was conducting a service, and they gave Sarah 3 weeks to live, and they carried her to the service, and she was up in the balcony, the very last row, last seat in the aisle, wearing a red dress. And the woman looked up at her, whose name was Corinne Kuhlman, and she said to her audience, "There's a woman up in the balcony who's dying of cancer. She's wearing a red dress, and as I talk to you, God's going to perform a miracle and cure her and heal her." And Sarah was healed. She felt like her body had 1,000 pins and needles in it, but she was healed. And she became an assistant to Miss Corinne Kuhlman. And about a year later, Corinne said to her, when they were visiting the Holy Land together, she said, "I'm going to make a transition of my soul," because she was in her late 70s, and she said she was going to pass on. And she said, "Sarah, God has given you now the gift. You are now responsible. You now have been given the gift of being able to pray for people, and God will heal them while you've been praying for them." Well, Sarah has a chapel, a non-denominational chapel in Arizona, which I've been to many, many times. And I have seen Sarah pray for people. I've seen hundreds of people over the years. Sarah would pray for them, and God would heal them. Not every one of them, but many of them would be healed. People would get up and give a testimony that 5 years earlier they were crippled and couldn't walk, and Sarah prayed for them, and God healed them, and they jump up on the stage and dance around the stage. Sarah's a living saint. She's been nominated. She is also the founder of the #1 foundation in the world for abused children. She has over 400. She has villages all over the country for them. She's been nominated 4 years in a row for the Nobel Award. And I'm positive that this is Sarah's last incarnation. She is truly, truly a living saint. And she's one of many, not many, she's one of a handful of people like her that I've met in different parts of the world that are living saints that I've seen perform miracles, like Sarah, like the one I just described to you. I've seen Sarah do many times. And I consider a miracle the intervention of God in a person's life. That's my definition of miracle, the intervention of God in a person's life. And I've seen these people do that. And these people are so high up on that pyramid that I was talking about. They could be on step 950, just 50 steps away from becoming one with God and one with Christ consciousness. And so, yes, I have seen living saints in the world. And every one of us eventually will reach that point. That is what our personal life is just climb those steps one at a time until we eventually reach the top, and we are one with God and Christ consciousness. And as we climb closer and closer to the top of the pyramid, we find that they have these gifts that you're talking about, Jake, that they can perform miracles.
And I've often heard people try to describe grace. I think that's something that you see missing in a lot, at least these days, in my opinion. People with the inherent gift of grace, people have a hard time describing it, putting it into words, but I think it's much like how you described, where no matter what, they always seem to be more in tune with, I guess, God's will than maybe, or not necessarily God's will, but we'll say God's energy. Why not? It's a Sean Seller show. And, it seems to resonate with some people a little easier than it does with other people. Do you have any tips for people to kind of get more in tune with that?
Well, I mean, in tune in their own lives, how to do that in their own lives?
Yeah, just a little bit to activate their spirituality a little better, I guess would be a good way to put it.
I think, yes, I can. In fact, I have a chapter of that in my book, in Time for Truth. If people could become conscious of the fact that the impact we have on other people's lives. One of the things that Jesse used to say 2,000 years ago, be love and kindness, and all around you should create the same. And that's so true. If a person gives love and gentleness and kindness, that is what they create around them. That's what other people feel, and other people begin to have that energy become part of their lives also. It's so important that we understand that. Another thing Jess used to say 2,000 years ago is enjoy life every moment and let others enjoy life through you. And if we make a practice of letting other people enjoy life through us, indeed, that's exactly what would happen, what you're referring to as grace, is that they all of a sudden realize that they're impacting other people's lives in such a positive way that they make themselves feel good also. Paul wrote in one of his letters 2,000 years ago that if you look into a mirror, what he was referring to is that when you look into a mirror, what he meant was that what we do to other people, that is what we get back in return. If we give love to other people, they in turn give us love back. If we give generosity to other people, that's what they give us back. But on the other hand, if we give anger to other people, they will act angry towards us. if we act selfish to other people, they'll act selfish to us, because we truly are a mirror of the way we behave to other people, and that's what we get back as we look into that mirror. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Jake, is that with grace, is as you practice giving love and compassion to other people, you find that all of a sudden you're impacting people's lives. When you go into a restaurant, ask the waiter or waitress what their name is. Look them in the eye and treat them with respect. And the person who's bundling your groceries, or the person that's your cashier in your grocery store, these are people that so often do not get respect. Give them love and respect, and watch the incredible response you get for them, because they're just as important. No matter what their economic situation is at the lowest ladder, they're just as important as the president of any corporation or the wealthiest people in our society, because they're all children of God. In fact, they may be even more important, because they're so often they're not given the love and compassion they deserve, because many people look down upon them because they're working in a subservient position, waiting on us rather than us waiting on them.
Indeed. I think that's, we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I think that's a great sentiment to close our interview on. I just want to, where can our listeners find your website, find your books for sale?
My website is nickbunick.com. That's Nick Bunick, BUNITK.com. It's an interactive website, which means that we have people from all over the country as well as other parts of the world that are commenting. I respond to them on the website, so we can read each other's comments as well as my responses. They comment between each other. It's a haven. It's a haven for love and spirituality. And my book is called Time for Truth, and it just came out about 2 months ago, so it might not be in all the bookstores yet, but it's also available on Amazon, as well as I think most of the Barnes & Noble stores are carrying it. I want to say to you, I really, truly appreciated the opportunity to be with you tonight. Again, it was a very unusual situation for me sitting here in this parking lot, but I truly enjoy the interview we had together, and I want to say to you and every one of your listeners, God bless you all as you continue on your journey.
Yes, sir, and I really, really appreciate you donating your time tonight and actually putting the show above basketball, like some people in this room.
What was the last about that?
Sean actually missed. He's going to be missing a little bit of the first part of the shows because he has to coach basketball. So I was ribbing him.
Okay. Until we get off the air, I got to find out if my son's team won or not. It was the first game of the season, and he was the starting point guard for the team.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck. I hope they won.
Well, either way, he was playing a real good game when I left, and there was one quarter left. But again, thank you so much for this opportunity to visit with you and your listeners and the members of your staff, and God bless you all.
Yes, sir. You have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that was our guest, Mr. Nick Bunick. I think he was a wonderful guest, although he made David angry, which really isn't hard to do. I do it like every show.
Yeah.
So, Sean, you want to come over here and tell us what it looks like from the top of the pyramid?
Yeah.
You can get ribbed on tonight, man.
Yeah, that's okay, man. That's okay. Hey, I truly enjoyed the guest. Hopefully we'll get him back on again soon. It's been a fun show. The first hour was a lot of fun. We had Mr. Fox scheduled. We had some technical problems. Sorry about that. We'll definitely get him back on again soon, we hope. Thanks again to everybody out there for listening to the show, all the support and friendship out there. Mark, thanks again for everything you've done for us, all of our friends out there. Guys, we appreciate it. Check out our websites at southernparanormalresearchers.org, SeanSellos.com, Chronicles of the Supernaturalist. Check us out on Jackalope Radio on Wednesday nights from 9 until 11.
He's trying to close the show out, isn't he? We got 3 minutes left.
Oh, really?
You took come over here.
Well, you can't. I thought you wanted me to close the show
no,
out.
No, when did I say that?
You
got to pay attention, man. Not just when you got to talk.
Well, Jake, man, you know what? I'm trying to do the best I can, man.
Okay.
Tear me up. I'm just all out of whack tonight, man.
I am tearing you up pretty bad. I got to quit that.
But it's okay.
It was just too good that was a coincidence. I had to do it.
Yes. Wow. What a night. And I am coaching basketball again, so I'm coaching 7-year-olds, and I'm also coaching 12 to 15-year-old little girls. So So I've got 2 teams, so it should be interesting.
So basically, I'm gonna have to bail you out about 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. You know
when
what?
you hit one of those little girls.
You know, I've never coached girls before. It's totally different.
Yes, it is.
And I keep calling them guys, and they correct me. And then, so we'll kind of see what happens. Hopefully, we'll win and get a trophy. You know.
It's all about that trophy.
Yeah.
Eyes on the prize, baby. Eyes on the prize.
I'm all about winning. So we'll see what happens.
At least you're not lying. You're like, yeah.
You know what?
Winning's everything.
I really want to win. That's why I told the girls. I said, I'm sorry. We in it to win. Do y'all want to win? They all agreed. I have my little practices. I'm such a weird guy. I've got everything scheduled by 5 minutes, and we do everything in 5 minutes, so we stay busy constantly. So they don't have time to giggle and play. They're constantly busy. Quick stations, moving about, quick passing. And then we scrimmage in like the last 10 minutes, and it's really fast scrimmaging. We go man to man, go to zone, and then we're talking about pressing. I said, we're going to press all 4 quarters. We're not going to do it the last half. We're going to play wide open 4 quarters. So I think they seem to like my style of play, so we'll see what happens.
So where is this at? Where are you actually coaching at?
I'm coaching at the Southeast Y, the girls, and I'm coaching the boys at the East Y.
Now, I got to ask you a question. You're coaching at the Southeast Y, right?
Yes.
How did they put that basketball arena in a kitchen?
Well, do you know there's actually 2 gyms over there?
Did you get the joke?
No.
I was making a sexist joke.
Oh, in the kitchen for the girls. Wow. Wow.
I'm trying to help you out and get off making fun of you. And make something and do something you can enjoy.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. My boys' team is going to be a long, long year. I mean, it's going to be a long, long season. But my girls, they can play. I got 3 of the little girls actually playing junior high basketball and my basketball, and I didn't know they could do that. They couldn't do that when we was in school. Mm-hmm. And these little girls got some game. I was kind of impressed. So my boys, wow.
You're holding out hope for them, huh?
Actually, I've got 5 of the boys from my football team. And, wow, we got a long season ahead.
It was the wrong 5, huh?
I've got one little boy that's phenomenal. He is absolutely just phenomenal. But my team is going to be a long season. I got a little German kid that don't speak English.
Oh, good.
And he is such a sweet little kid, but he comes there in his German clothes, full outfit.
Are we talking lederhosen now?
He's got little clothes that don't look like our clothes. Yeah. His athletic shoes don't look like our athletic shoes. No, they're not wooden. But it's just totally different. Poor little boy.
That's Dutch, David.
Yeah. And then we got my son, Tyrus. Tyrus actually, the kid went up for a jump shot. Tyrus creamed him. Laid him out.
Does everyone here want to take a pot on how long it's going to be until Sean starts yelling at that kid and calling him Schnitzel? Anybody any takers? We got a spread.
Can't say Schnitzel.
He will learn how to say Schnitzel.
Yeah.
He calls him Adolf.
See, David, that ain't even funny.
Oh,
dang.
That's hilarious.
Wow. You would. That's because you didn't think what Adolf Hitler did was bad, David.
He was doing it for the...
that...
Wow.
Wow. Hey, what? We're going to actually have a show talking about the Glenn Miller. Because, I've found out something new this week. I never knew, and I'm supposed to be a history buff. I'm ashamed of myself. I never knew that Glenn Miller went missing. I never knew that story. Michelle told me about it. I've been researching it. We're going to have a little show and talk about that. It's actually the anniversary coming up December 15th. It happened December 15th, 1944. So it's a really interesting story. I've been playing around researching it. We'll maybe talk about it next week some. So we know we got 1 minute now. I get to wrap up the show a little bit.
Now you can.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Hey, I want to invite everybody to check us out on Jackalope Radio from 9 until 11 on Wednesday night. Check it out on Thursday night, crossroadsparanormal.com. ParaX right after. And check us out our website, southernparanormalresearchers.org, SeanSellers.com, and Chronicles of the Supernaturalist. And visit my guest book at SeanSellers.com and sign up, and I appreciate that. Thanks to everybody that listens to our show. Appreciate all of our guests. Had an excellent guest tonight, so thanks to everything, guys. Check us out again next week. We love you guys. Have a good night.